Hey everyone, today I wanted to tell you about viscoelastic fluids. And they're kind of similar, reminds a bit about the viscous liquid type. But the main difference, I think, when you compare them to each other is that they kind of behave differently when you start to really deform them and squash them up, like I've done in the examples you may have seen if you follow me on social media. So there's some lessons to learn from the original viscosity tutorial, which I will refer to. It could be a good idea to check that out. I will point out what I mean exactly by that. So viscoelastic, I have two domains set up here, and the pink particles and the red particles. And the red particles are for now set to the viscoelastic particle types, and the pink ones are the standard viscous, which we are used to seeing. And if we take a look at the quick help, it says that viscoelastic is a choice of materials such as ketchup, toothpaste, or silicone. And my explanation would be that, you know, any type of situation where you really want a build-up, and if you kind of smear it, it's going to retain the structure that is created. So if you would have like silicone, for example, if you have a tool that kind of messes up the silicone, you want it to keep the structure and the ridges inside of that build-up. That's when you would use viscoelastic. Because at first glance, if you just simulate these two particle systems, they would appear very similar, because they're both viscous, and they're well, one of them is viscous and the other is viscoelastic. Let me see if the settings are the same. The thing that really determines how viscous it's going to be and kind of resist deforming is the minimax substeps and the iterations, just as with viscous particle type. So really what you want to do there, if you think it's too runny, then you need to increase your min-max substeps and your iterations. And if you want less kind of resistance, you want it to smear out a bit more or meld out a bit more, which is the tendency with viscous, then you kind of lower these a bit. But not too much. I mean, you could lower the iterations, but if you're going for like final quality anyway, you're probably going to want, you know, pretty high substeps anyway. But you can have substeps and then balance it out with the actual viscosity setting on the particle object itself, on the domain. But generally, when I'm doing these type of things, I really want it to be chunky and, you know, resistant. Here you can kind of see that in this one, I definitely could have sprung for way higher max substeps, because this really jerking up here, and a lot of kind of precision errors there. But yes, the main difference, as I was saying, is when you start to kind of deform these objects. So let's grab something like a sphere. Just position that using the top view, scale it up a bit, and duplicate. Put the other one there, and I will just parent it, so I only have to animate one of them. And height-wise, right above the ground plane, I want it to really push out the liquid or the particles. And in this case, let's just have it fall down as they have now, and then set the first keyframe, and let's allow it, you know, a good second or so to travel over to the other side there. And I'm just using the K key on the keyboard to set position keyframes, or really translate keyframes. So there's actually keyframes on position, rotation, and scale, but I don't mind that too much because I'm not going to change anything else. But you can always just individually keyframe each channel in here, and you can even twirl it out and do the individual channels. But that's kind of a sidestep here. So I'm using a hub here to make things easy. Both spheres are going to collide both domains. That doesn't really matter. This makes it a lot easier for me. In this case, we shouldn't have to do anything else than what we've just done. So let's position ourselves. Maybe I'll hide the emitters. I don't know if the difference is super obvious in this case, but when you start kind of going up in particle density and resolution, then you're really gonna see the difference when you're starting to get kind of like very obvious patterns where they're kind of preserving the deformations that you've done. So they're really rigid and very smeary, which I enjoy a lot. But the red one here is the viscoelastic. So let's maybe increase these resolutions a bit and see if we can see additional detail. Now it might be time to start lowering the size of that sphere that I'm using as preview. But I'm not going to bother too much with that because now I want to create a mesh instead that portrays this. I'm just going to insert all particle source, and it's going to be way too blobby by default, I think. But we can keep it like that for now. I'm just going to disable the selection highlighting and keep going. If you were paying close attention, you saw that I'm not even having a mesh for the first 13 frames for now, but this is not something I'm going to keep. I'm just using the mesh to debug and see a little bit clearer what's going on, because then it gets shaded. Kind of running out a bit more now that it's more particles, so I probably would have needed to fine-tune the attributes a bit and the minimax substeps maybe, but I'm not going to worry too much about that in this test. What I'm really after is that deformation that's going to happen when the spheres run across of a difference, because if we look, I think the mesh is a little blobby still. I haven't really tweaked the settings, but you can see that it really is forming up structures in there. Like this was a jelly or something that really has, you know, some tensions and some lumps in there. It's really keeping its structure, if you will. So let's now see what happens when the spheres pass through. So you can kind of see it now that this is withstanding the test of time a little better. If I were to increase my minimax substeps, it would probably be clearer, but this, as time goes by, is just going to smear out into puddle eventually, because that's what it's designed to do. I think maybe this wasn't the best example. What if we remove the animation and just stick the emitters over the spheres instead? So I'm going to remove the curves on everything. And yeah, I reset. Let's put these in the middle and probably bring up the size a bit. Now I have the unparent because otherwise they're going to skew apart. Yes, and let's take the emitter, put them above. Maybe take them down in size as well. So let's see. I want a bit of a drop height so that there's an impact. And maybe 50 was a little high, I think. I'll go with 25. And I will do this on the command line now. So we've got about a second of sim completed. So I'll just update the timeline cache and see what it looks like. This is a lot more apparent, obviously, while this is sticking together in more of a like meshy, kind of gooey, you know, like cookie paste frosting type scenario. This is more like, you know, something more coagulated. And that's really it, you know, another particle type to take into consideration and to experiment with. I had a lot of fun making this one. I obviously could have spent a little more time on that example, trying to get the quality straight, but it's really just a simple thing to try out the different particle types and play with those. when it comes to this, and deform them in different ways, as I've been doing with the Viscoelastics. It's a lot of fun. If you're uncertain about the usage of the parameters in terms of minimax, substeps, and iterations, I did cover that a little more thoroughly when I did the A tutorial for the viscosity liquids, this one. So feel free to check that out under my videos. It will be liquid ABC breakdown A for the letter A, which originally was, let's see, this sim here. Not as pretty, arguably, but I did finish it in a couple of hours, so not the point. As always, I would love to see what you can come up with these techniques, so please show me what you can make using some of these tricks, and I will be happy to show it and share it with my little circle of followers. And you can tag me on Instagram or Twitter, or you know, mention me or whatever you like, and I'm on Facebook as well. And as usual, if you think there's anything I can improve in terms of ways to kind of structure the video and whatnot, then do let me know in the comments below, or email me at davesplaining@gmail.com, and I would be happy to chat, really. Something new for these last few videos lately is I've been starting to make my recordings in 1440p now, so you should be able to see things a little clearer. And I'm now starting to share the scene files as well, and I will be doing that retroactively for all of the Liquid ABC videos. And I'm using Patreon for doing that. So, I mean, if you like what I'm doing, then by all means, chip in. It would really help me to spend more time on these videos, which I really love doing, but it does take up a lot of my time. But it's not mandatory in terms of taking part of the scene files. So it's just links to these YouTubes, and there are scene files as well. So I just chose that for distributing it. And give me an old thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of this. And by all means, if you know someone who's into CG, you might want to learn about Realflow and other stuff. Like I said, I have Maya Node editor tutorials upcoming. I have Mesh and Maya Particles, which I'm looking forward to. And I anticipate at some point I'm going to get into doing Redshift tutorials, Blender maybe Soup and Maya, who knows? Sky's the limit. So that's been Viscoelastics. I hope you liked it, and see you soon.